Okay, so let's begin by saying some prayers. So turn to page 34 in the Gold Prayer Book, and you'll see a mantra over the words daily prayers. That's the Shakyamuni Buddhist mantra. So let's chant that 3 times. If you have a white binder instead of a gold prayer book, it's the first sheet that says Kadamba Center Prayers, and this is probably the first thing on that page. Tayata Om Mune Mune Mahamunaye Soha. Tayata Om Mune Mune Mahamunaye Soha. Tayata Om Mune Mune Mahamunaye Soha. And then the 4 measurables in English on that same page. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Now turn the page to 37. And we'll chant the 4 measurables chanting version at the bottom of the page. And for the people in the white book, it's just the Tibetan words by the music notes. Senchentam chedevadam devegyudam Demparjurchi Dungyao Danduk Yao Gigyudam Rewarjurchi Dungyao Mepe Dewadamidre Warjurchi Nyering Chadam Nidandrewe Tanyam Lanem Parjurchi. Now let's chant Chenrezig's mantra, that right below there, 8 times. Chenrezig is the Buddha of great compassion. And then below that, Green Tara's mantra 7 times. And Green Tara is the deity of enlightened activity. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Om Tare Tu Re Soha. 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 Om Taritu Taritu Re Soha.
Good morning. It's nice seeing everyone here this morning. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Chuki. And for those who don't know Donna, she's our spiritual program coordinator. And Donna has kindly agreed to help support me today. I'm not feeling great, so she's going to help back me up. So appreciate that. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So maybe we could take just a minute and rejoice about being here today. You know, you obviously set an intention to come here, and then you followed that through and came. And, you know, if this is something you do regularly, it's sometimes easy to forget how precious this really is. I mean, what had to come together for there to even be a Kadampa Center, and that Don Brown had the idea when he came back from Asia and then got Lama Zopa Rinpoche to agree to let us start Kadampa Center, 25 years ago, and then all the teachings that we've had since then, that we have a resident Geshe and then a second resident Geshe here now, and there's just so many things that make this so amazing and precious. So let's spend this hour and a half in a way that maybe hopefully will help us, and that we can maybe think about this hour and a half as a grand experiment. We're going to be trying on a few different things for those who are willing, and nothing scary or anything, I just mean within our own minds. And I brought along a guest speaker today. His Holiness is going to say a few things. Hopefully that will be useful. I think that's all I wanted to say as an intro. Maybe we could take just 1 minute to introduce ourselves to each other. Okay, so Donna is going to lead us in a meditation.
Okay. So Geshe usually starts us with a meditation, and this morning we're going to do the nine round breathing meditation. And this is a really good meditation to do before any other meditation or any spiritual undertaking, because it's kind of a little quick cleansing meditation. And of course, any meditation is to help calm our minds and free us from disturbing thoughts. And Geshe explains that a purpose of the 9-round breathing meditation is that it removes waste energy. If from the moment we get up, try to catch yourself not thinking. We've got our minds are going all the time, and thoughts are flying around inside like popcorn popping. And when those thoughts are negative or uptight or inflexible, then we get this imbalance in our system, and that waste energy kind of settles into our channels. And so this is just a way of clearing those channels so that we're in good condition to continue our spiritual process. So the way the 9-round breathing meditation works is you start with, I'm just going to walk us through it quickly, and then we'll do it without an interruption. So you start with your the ring finger of your left hand, and you cover your left nostril. And yeah, I couldn't remember if we breathe in or breathe out fast. I'm a little nervous, sorry. So then you breathe in a nice, long, slow breath, and then you switch and cover your right nostril and breathe out through your left nostril. And we'll do that 3 times. That's the first round of 3. And then when you're finished that one, we take the ring finger on our right hand, cover our right nostril, and breathe in through our left nostril, and then cover the left one and breathe out through the right side. And then hands free, look, Ma. We breathe in and in through our nose and out with both nostrils, and that sort of clears us all the way. And you can kind of visualize. When I first learned this, and this is kind of a nice thing to visualize sometimes, is you sort of imagine that you're breathing white light in through that nostril, and then as it's coming out, it's coming from the very bottom of your body and pushing up and pushing all that junk out through the other channels. So it's like a little cleanse both ways. So let's just go ahead and start that.
Thank you, Donna. Excellent. So that's a great way to get our minds settled a little bit as we talk about today's topic, which is the importance of a calm mind. So for me, this topic is really full of hope, you know, the idea that no matter what we're experiencing, you know, with practice, we can learn to shift our thoughts so that from the inside out, we can change the experience. And so, like I said, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I have a few clips from him, just short. Most of them are 2 or 3 minutes. I think one of them's just a little bit longer. What the format for today is, I'll show a clip, and then we'll have a little discussion. I'll ask a few questions to get the thought process going, and then we'll watch the next clip and do it like that. So participation is certainly not mandatory. I know often I feel like I can learn a lot just by listening, but also if no one talks, then it's hard to learn. So we'll just see how it goes. So I think maybe I'll dive right into it. This first clip is a short excerpt from a 2007 film called Dalai Lama Renaissance, and it's just a couple of minutes on sort of inner peace. So we'll see how I do with this technology here. hopefully I can make it work. You all tell me if it's easier to see.
At least the front of the room, maybe. Front lights down.
Now we are actually creating more unnecessary stuff. I think very important to be clear to public. This is really not talking about religion. If we have more compassion, God will please. We are not talking that. And Buddhist, if we practice compassion, Buddha will support us. I'm not talking that. If we are a more compassionate person, I get more benefit. I will be more happier person. That's the point. Here I think one check. One is in me because of $1 million. But here, no peace. That $1 million will not bring inner peace, happiness. More frustration. This money brings more frustration, more suspicion, more anxiety. Or sometimes more jealous then. So inner peace is the ultimate source of happiness, joy. And people do not understand that. Isn't it? That doesn't matter.
Okay. Okay. So, why should we work to reduce negative emotions? That's kind of a maybe a softball to get us started.
I think that working through the negative emotions kind of releases you from your self-centered I of being attached to this is good, this is bad. And if you're more neutral to it and accept it, that it's just a passing thing and don't get too attached to it, that you yourself become more peaceful inside, therefore you're more compassionate toward other people. And when I have disturbing thoughts or having a situation, one day when I was working out in the garden, I saw the train come by. And it's like, meow. And I thought, well, I'm going to use that as this is a disturbing thought and how to make it go away. So when I have something I want to go away, I pretend I see the train. And on the side of it, it reads, not real, passing through. It says, not real, passing through. Meow. So I learned that just from working in the garden. So the train is here for a purpose. So for those of you who have not seen the train pass through and have that visual in your head, it's very nice. And most of the time it works. Most of the time I remember it, but then I am human. Sometimes I don't. But when I do go back to that, I'm like, yay, the thought's gone. It's not going to hurt me, and I'm just going to leave now before I get in trouble.
So that's fantastic, the not real passing through. And it really reminds me of what Venerable Thupten Chodron and many others have said, don't believe everything you think, right? So that's wonderful. Thanks.
I think it's important to remember how we're constantly influencing everything around us. So when you're experiencing negative emotions, you're likely to treat other people around you differently. You're going to pass that on to other people. And that's in turn going to change, your interaction with them. It's going to be negative. You're going to become more negative. They're going to be negative to people around them in turn. So it's important to not try to pass that on to other people. So if you're positive, you're going to be spreading that to everything around you as well.
Yeah, so keeping in mind the ripple effect, good or bad. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, maybe one more. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Amanda. Thanks for bringing this topic up. So one of the things I was thinking about with negative emotions, like why it's so important, is because it's really important for my mind to be kind of as calm as possible. When my mind is calmer, I'm able to see things more as they really exist than the delusion that my minds create. So more than often, if I have a lot of negative emotions, that dilutes me from being able to see things as they really exist. The other thing is, if I have a negative emotion, that's usually attachment and clinging to something and desire. And I'm more than often, if I have a very strong negative emotion, more apt to act out on that emotion in a unhealthy behavior, which creates more harm and more negative karma, which creates more cyclic existence and more samsara for me and everybody around me. So by working with those negative emotions through meditation and like practice and the teachings and things like that, it's really important that Geshe said it a few weeks ago in one of his teachings, like every thought is important to grab that thought and really dissect that thought, especially if it's a negative thought. And that's the whole point of meditation, is to make your mind as peaceful as possible and just think something positive. And that's very important because of how karma is created. And what we do through karma is through our thoughts and actions. And if we don't catch those things, like it just continues on and on and on.
Yeah, so Amanda, you're pointing out that when it starts at that very beginning, if you stop it there, you can then stop all the negative chain that follows, right? Yeah, so that's a great point. Yeah. Do you want to maybe do that one?
Go down here or here?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
So His Holiness pointed out that the reason to develop compassion is that we feel better. You know, it's not to make some big guy up in the clouds happy, but for our own happiness. And so, you know, I'm just wondering if anyone has had that experience themselves, that you feel better when you practice compassion. And can speak to that.
See heads nodding, yeah.
Yeah, I always feel better when I think positive thoughts. It kind of makes sense, right? I mean, you think negative thoughts, it not only affects us emotionally, but also affects us physically too. I find that when I just hold on to negative thoughts, physically I begin to feel much worse, right? I feel less energy. I feel weighed down. You know, but when I can change that thought to a positive thought, then I mean, just Thich Nhat Hanh talks about just smiling, right? Even if you don't feel like a smile, just smile. And immediately when I do that, you know, I begin to feel lighter. I begin to feel happier, you know. So yeah, it's not about God or about Buddha. It's not about doing something to please somebody other than pleasing yourself, perhaps. Yeah.
Fake it till you make it, right?
First, I want to express my gratitude again for being here. I always appreciate the presence of everybody here. This morning on the way here, I was thinking of the difference between the natural man and a spiritual man. To me, the natural is the negativity that has already been expressed, and we know that we all have it. But as we become more spiritually oriented, we do want to overcome the natural state of our minds, and you know, that's not always an easy task to do. Frequently, we as humans will, instead of overcoming a weakness, we'll try to suppress it. That never is a good idea. You have to work through it. Otherwise, that particular negativity or problems yet remains with us and will be manifested in other areas of our lives, even if we're not aware of it. And to add to what's already been said about our benefits. Yes, as we truly benefit ourselves, then we are automatically going to be a benefit to those around us. Oftentimes people would think, oh, if I do this, I'll be happy. Or if I meet this person, I'll be happy. No. It comes from within, and we have to work through that. And sometimes when we think we're on the right path of improving ourselves and something happens and then an emotion flares up, well, we realize we still have work to do. But for me, as I seek to overcome my own weaknesses, I try to remember that overcoming is working through and not hiding. And as I said, it's not an easy thing to do, but I think it's something that we all benefit in striving for. Thank you very much.
Sure. So you mentioned one of the points, that His Holiness uses the term enlightened self-interest, right? Where like if you're working to benefit others, it makes you feel good, So yeah, it's a good point. Yeah.
Hi. I just want to say again how grateful I am for all of your work that you all are doing here to make this center happen. It's extremely precious to me to be here. I think the thing I have trouble, I have found that I have trouble with the idea of negative emotions and positive emotions. That for me, it has been a more helpful frame to think of whether an emotion is harmful, because all emotions can be harmful, and all emotions can be skillful. So the frame that I tend to use is less about negative emotions, because I don't really know what that means. But whether the emotion can drive you towards a skillful behavior is the question that I ask myself for how I move through the world. And when I am struck by emotion, I have found that I can't really control my emotions, that I have them or I don't. But the thing that I can control or I have some choice about is what I do, how I interact with the world. And in some ways, it's a very interesting question about, has meditation made me happier? Yes and no. I think that meditation has made me more skillful. And in some ways, in becoming more skillful, it has opened my eyes to the depth of my own suffering and to the depth of the suffering of others. And so I'm not sure that I'm happier. I think that because I have more tools available to me through meditation and through practice, I'm then able to encounter my own suffering and encounter the suffering of others in such a way that I can be of more help to those beings and to myself. But that doesn't mean that I don't continue to go through a great deal of pain.
Sure. I mean, we're human. That's what happens. Right. Yeah. Okay, I think we have time for maybe one more. Yeah. Over here.
I know for me, when I'm experiencing negative emotions, it's not the kind of thing I want to share with all the people around me. It's kind of, yeah. I don't want you to know what I'm thinking about you right now, that kind of thing. And so then I think by doing acts of compassion, even if it's forced initially, the receiver of that act is like tends more like than if I treat them with my negative emotions. If I treat them with compassion, they tend to be positive response to me, you know, and that makes me feel good, and also reduces the negative emotions can isolate you, I think, and acts of compassion can connect you with the people around you, and make you feel safe that way.
Yeah. So maybe part of it's about the connection for you with the compassion. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Really appreciate everybody sharing. Thanks. Okay, so maybe we'll watch another video here. I think we're going to skip ahead to one called The Importance of a Calm Mind.
Firstly, I think the importance of calm mind. Two things.
Before we even get going, yeah, go ahead, Steve, over here. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was a hand. I thought you were so eager. Yeah. Okay, so I believe in that clip, the scientist that His Holiness was talking about was Aaron Beck, who it was kind of considered the first to come up with cognitive therapy. And the book is Prisoners of Hate. It's the cognitive basis of anger, hostility, and violence. And so this notion about the 90% of things being mental projections, in case you couldn't really hear very well, that was kind of the gist of that point. So we kind of talked some about this already, but according to His Holiness, can anybody remember what he said the benefits of a calm mind are? He listed 2 things. Okay, I'll just go with it. He said, yeah, so inner peace and a healthy body. And he also said it helps you see clearly reality with intelligence to be more objective. Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
I actually have a question. I wonder if anyone has ever had the experience of not having a calm mind, but being absolutely convinced that you do, and that you are seeing things objectively. Yeah. We've all been there, haven't we? So His Holiness talked about, and I guess that's a mental projection when you're absolutely convinced of your own illusions. Can anyone think of times when you've had these mental projections, either of attachment, which is exaggerating the good qualities of a person or a circumstance, or the house you want or something, or aversion, where we're exaggerating the negative qualities? Anybody have experiences to share with us?
I don't know if this is exactly it, but so I was struggling with my calm mind the other day, and because like within probably 3 days' time, I've had my bank card and 2 of my credit cards compromised. And while I was in my angry, frustrated mode, and I was trying to find my calm mind, but not doing it very well, it took me through basically, I wouldn't say yelling, but kind of yelling at my husband and my daughter to express how frustrated I was to get to a more calm mind. And I preface it to say that I was like, I'm not mad at you. I'm just so frustrated, and I needed to get it out. But then, I realized at that point, there's not anything I can do. They had to shut down my credit cards and everything like that, and it's not a life or death situation. I know it's going to be fixed. It might be a week or so. But then I was like, okay, I apologized for being flustered, and got to a better place. And I was like, if this is the end of the world, then it's really not that bad. So that's kind of, but it took me sort of, blowing up a little bit to realize how silly I was acting, because obviously the people around me hadn't done anything. So I don't know if that was kind of probably different than what you're talking about, but trying to come to my comment.
Yeah, it is kind of tough when we can't find those calming tools without involving other people sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, one for me is like Walmart. I don't know. It seems like Walmart is notorious for having employees who don't seem to be trained in people skills. And so you go there. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm getting my little product, whatever it may be, and then this cashier, he or she, he just it's kind of unkind or rude or not friendly, and immediately I began to just load on to this person all these negative things. Like, I know her, right? I mean, I know, or him, I know everything about this person. I just load all this crap onto this person, and it's like, and and really exaggerating these negative qualities, right? That happens quite a bit. And I have to step back and realize I don't know this person. This person probably maybe just having a bad day, you know. Sometimes I look and say, well, no, well, what's wrong with me? It's like I'm expecting a certain type of respect or treatment. You know, the customer's always right, and I'm not getting that, you know. And so when I do that, then I begin to see, and I try to immediately find something that's likable about that person. Maybe hairstyle, color of eyes, or something. Immediately I try to find something and look at that so that I can just back off of that negativity, because it never ends well. Never, ever, especially for me.
Well, Andre, that's a perfect intro, actually, into where we're going next. So I love this idea of when that negativity arises and you catch it, having a tool in your back pocket, like, okay, at least I can say they got pretty eyes. I mean, something, right? You know, because that shifts it, right? And so that's a really great point. So I don't know how many of you have heard Geshe use this term Nam Tok. It's a Tibetan word. And he, for years, has been bringing up this term, and we've tried all kinds of different translations. And sometimes it's translated as discursive thought, self-made stories, negative self-talk, projections. You know, there's all these different terms that I've seen it defined as assumptions. Even one Tibetan English dictionary just uses conception as the definition. But I really was wanting to spend a little time today figuring out what Nam Tok is, and part of it is the whole story you have about the person like you know them. I mean, that's a perfect description as I understand it. So Geshe has used an example one time about you send an email to somebody and you don't get a quick reply. And the longer time goes on, the more stories you create about why they're not replying, right? And you can create quite a bit of suffering for yourself around that, right? And maybe you're right or maybe you're wrong, but there's a lot of suffering that comes from by the end, like, well, maybe they're not even my friend that I thought they were, right? I mean, we can really take it pretty far. And then you get the reply, which was just like, oh, I wasn't feeling good yesterday or whatever. And all of that goes away, right? You realize the story wasn't real, but you still had all the suffering. I mean, the future suffering stops, but you can't undo what you experienced while you had all that going on, right? So so I don't know if any of you ever heard, recently Geshe's been talking about Nam Tok as Sesame Street. And so that's coming from a particular video, and I thought I'd let you see how Ernie handles his Nam Tok. So
Hello there. Hey, you know what happened to me? I broke my vacuum cleaner. So I sent it off to the repair shop to get it fixed. But I need to clean my apartment, and so I really need a vacuum cleaner, you know? So right here in this house here lives a very good friend of mine, Herbert Birchfoot, and he's got a vacuum cleaner, you know? So what I think I'll do is I was going to knock on the door here and ask Herbert Birchfoot if I can borrow his vacuum cleaner. But wait a minute. You know what? Gee, I just happened to think. Right about this time every day, old Herbert Birchfoot takes a bath. I bet he's inside right now in his nice warm tubby, soaping his ears, you know. And then there's going to be this knock on the door, and he's going to come to the door, and then I'm going to ask to borrow his vacuum cleaner, and he's going to be real mad, I bet, because I made him get out of his nice warm tubby, come to the door, all wet and sudsy. He'll probably even catch a cold. Wow. Yeah. You know what? He might not even loan me his vacuum cleaner. You know, a person who makes him come, you know, out of his nice warm tubby and catch a cold. Wow. He probably, you know what? I bet he would think that I probably wouldn't even return his vacuum cleaner to him. But I would. Of course I would. But he would think I wouldn't. Matter of fact, he'd probably go around telling all my friends not to loan me anything. He'd probably tell them that I wouldn't return it, you know? He'd probably say how unreliable I am, you know? And none that people shouldn't loan me anything. And people would stop loaning me things. As a matter of fact, they probably wouldn't even speak to me anymore. I used to have a lot of friends before that rotten old Herbert Birchfoot started shooting. Oh,
So, can we relate? Just quickly, does anybody have anything about that that really stood out for them? Otherwise, we're going to unpack it a little more, but no? Okay. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. This saying. I don't know how many of you have heard Geshe-la talk about this one, but sometimes he'll quote this. Lama Zopa Rinpoche has talked about this particular stanza in this book, How to Practice Dharma, which is a book entirely about the 8 worldly dharmas, or the 8 worldly concerns. And we're going to talk just a minute about that. But and it's also in Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand by Pabanka Rinpoche. There's different translations of these, but it's been attributed in Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand to Ling Repa. And so it goes like this. In Samsara, the city of preconceptions, which is the word Namtok, wander the zombies of the 8 worldly concerns. You are in a terrifying charnel ground. Have your guru perform an exorcism. So when I first read this, I didn't quite get what it meant. I needed a little help. So let's look at it a little bit at a time. So samsara, that's the cyclic existence that, we're stuck in if we don't do anything to try to get out. We just circle in samsara. The city of Namtok is a way to describe samsara. And according to Geshe-la, he says, this town is like stories made by mind. Your mind, my mind, all these minds. And the 8 worldly concerns, so those are these zombies, right? The poetic zombies here. And so the 8 worldly concerns are generally listed as 4 pairs of opposites, something we want and something we don't want. And so they generally motivate the actions of ordinary beings, probably all of us in the room if we're who we appear to be. So they're being happy when you get things and being unhappy when you don't. Wanting to be happy and not wanting to be unhappy, wanting praise and not wanting criticism, and wanting a good reputation and not wanting a bad one. So they're translated, these pairs are translated a lot of different ways, but simply put, it's, experiencing pleasure or suffering, gain or loss, good or bad reputation, and praise or blame. Those are generally how they're talked about. So when we talk about these charnel grounds, it's a terrifying, haunted cemetery. According to Lama Zopa Rinpoche, the zombies in the cemetery and all that, of course, they're not something external. They're internal, right? It's, the problems in our mind, namely these 8 worldly concerns. And so if we learn to fear that, like we would a cemetery, then that will motivate our practice. That's kind of the idea. And the exorcism that's requested, sometimes that's been translated as equalizing the points or practicing equanimity there instead of exorcism. And that's talking about equalizing the 8 worldly concerns. So not being drawn to one of the pair or having aversion for the other. So it's equalizing that so that, with our theme today, nothing's going to disturb us. We're going to just have a calm mind. So first off, any questions about that? Does that make sense? Anything need to be clarified? Okay. So what would it mean to equalize these pairs of experiences? Do people get what that means? Like, can somebody think of an example? Or if not, do you have a question about that?
So I can tell a little story about that.
Great.
So when I was in middle school, I was going through the torturous transformation of puberty. And there were a lot of people who had a lot of opinions about my body and about who I was in the world, and did a lot of telling me what those opinions were. And so I began to believe them, that all of the negative things that people said to me about who I was, that I was like, well, okay, so I guess all of that's true because other people are saying these things. And so I did a lot to like guard myself against the pain of humiliation and the pain of like encountering that over and over again. And I remember this one time I was in 8th grade and I was walking down the hallway and I was protecting myself from being seen by anyone else, even though it was a crowded hallway, right? When I suddenly realized that as much as I was imagining everyone else's thoughts about me being negative, right? This sort of like, there's that ugly girl, there's that like stupid bitch, like that kind of thing, right? All of that I was imagining everyone else having those thoughts. I suddenly realized that everyone else around me was having those thoughts about me, that they thought that I was having negative thoughts about them. And that in fact, we all were so caught in our own fears of having other people have negative thoughts about ourselves that we couldn't even perceive the other person or anyone else in the room. So I was like, wow, well, if that's true, and maybe it's true, then why don't I just imagine that everyone is thinking positive thoughts about me? Because I lose nothing, right? And instead of existing in the suffering of everyone thinks I'm awful, that I could just be like, well, everybody thinks I'm amazing, you know? And that's where I was in 8th grade. And I was like, okay. And now later, so many decades later, I think that I had half of a realization, because the full realization would have been that both are in fact equally untrue. That to believe that everyone is thinking positively about me, or that I need them to, or that everyone is thinking negatively about me, or that I need them to, is actually equally false. And that where you want to get is this kind of, is that exorcism of the equanimous, like the space of both sides, all sides. You will sit in calm abiding instead. Does that make sense?
Sure. Yeah. Nice story. Yeah. Good example.
That actually strikes me that one of the things I find really interesting about the translation of Nomtok is the choice of the word zombies. Because in Western mythology, a zombie is the walking dead. And that's what those kind of negative thoughts are. They're dead, they're not true, they're not alive, they're not real. And we're the ones who give them that energy to walk as though they're living and as though they're real. And it feels like you started putting all of that together very well.
Yeah, good point.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, what she just said really speaks to me. I'm still struggling with this. I have severe, really, really, really bad social anxiety, and I still find myself thinking, oh, everybody else is thinking bad things about me, so then I think everybody else is a horrible person and the world is a horrible place, and then I just don't want to leave my house because everyone out there is bad and they're thinking bad things about me. So it's just this cycle, but it's all in my head. So I'm still trying to deal with that and get out of it, and that's why I'm here. So I just wanted to thank her for sharing her story.
And thank you for speaking
Good
up.
for you.
I bet that wasn't easy, so thank you.
I work for City Public Utilities and Maintenance Division, and it can be like a pretty rough group of people, and I would think the management sometimes needs some more skill in handling things. But how I talk about the extremes. When I first started out there, I started following this one guy. He was used him as like a guide how to work through the system, and I told him one time I was going to put him up for Employee of the Year. And he said, no, don't put me up for Employee of the Year because it's a kiss of death, you know. He said, this guy gets Employee of the Year, and halfway through that year, he gets canned. This guy gets it, he gets canned and stuff. And so, I mean, as far as like the extremes go, at that place, if you do something one week, they'll praise you for, and the next week, if they'll like be watching you all the next week. Oh, this is the guy, and then they find something and say it that you screwed up this, you weren't paying attention there, and so to recognize that when they're praising me, not to get all spun up in that praise, because the next week they can be putting me down, and then I'll be all spun down in that. So try not to be living in those extremes. Has you at like you said, a calmer, more centered place where neither of the two you see as a benefit, because neither of the two will last.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great example. Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of build on that a little bit, because I feel like the idea that we make these preconceptions about others, or that we worry so much about how people think of us, when we get so caught up in both of those things, we lose sight of seeing ourselves and others as we really are, and seeing like the humanity of people. We put somebody on a pedestal, or we put somebody in the gutter, and we don't really stop to think about the reality of who they are, or really just see them.
So it sounds to me like one of the techniques you use is to try to see past whatever that first judgment, stereotype, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
first impressions.
Yeah.
To actually like take that moment to look at the person for who they are at that moment.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about the particular techniques we can use, right? It's really helpful to have some tools at the ready, so that, like Andre's example of, when I catch myself doing it, I apply this. And so you've got another tool there, right? This tool of really trying to see past that first impression.
To being open, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting thing about these four opposites, right? Is that we act like we have a choice. We don't have a choice. I think that's the delusion. I mean, you're going to get praise and you're going to get blame. There's going to be loss and there's going to be gain. And I think the thing is that we have to learn how to recognize that this is our path. So there is going to be some pain and some suffering along the way. This is our path. And so we learn how to accept that instead of trying to resist that. Jack Kornfield said, if I'm suffering, that's okay. I'm just suffering Buddha. Right? So we learn how to use that suffering and be able to use that and be able to help someone else who's experiencing the same thing. We think somehow we can get out of this, but you can't. This is just a natural course. So it's better, instead of resisting, to just recognize, well, this is my situation. Yes, I'm riding pretty high now. I'll enjoy that for the moment, because it will be just a moment, right? And then I'm down here. That's just a moment as well, And I think that's how we're able to get through this and quit thinking that we can somehow change the situation, but learn how to accept that and just realize this is my path, and be appreciative and have some joy in that. Yeah.
And so there's a term that Tara Brach uses, and she calls it radical acceptance, right? So it doesn't mean you have to like it or even try to perpetuate it or anything. It just means, oh, this is how it is right now, right? And then from there you can then do things. And you also crammed in there a lot of things. You talked about impermanence, right? Knowing that no matter what it is, good or bad, it's not going to stay there, right? Because we have that experience over and over in our lives. We can easily prove that to ourselves. Yeah. Were you going to say something?
Yeah, and His Holiness also, and I think he's quoting Shantideva in this when he talks about the uselessness of getting all upset about these things that we experience. And it says, if you can do something about it, why worry? And if you can't do anything about it,
why worry? And, you know, I could spend a couple of days thinking about that one.
Yeah, the Buddhist serenity prayer, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Well, I think we've got one last clip here. Is this the right one? Be the change. Yeah. This one's just a little bit longer, so you can pace yourself.
All happens the same potential. So the point is, we usually take things take for granted, not much pay attention. That's, I think, I consider my sort of duty to remind people, you have precious things already there. Pay more attention on that. That way, your life becomes more happier. Your mind can maintain, more calm mind. Calm mind is very essential. Both feelings, good health, then our intelligence, in order to utilize or in order to become effective. Calm mind is very important. Once your mind too much sort of rooted with vegetation like that, or too much attachment, then our wisdom, our intelligence cannot see the object objectively, because emotion too much sort of one-sided, negative, hatred, anger, suspicion, or too much attachment. So with that level of understanding, you can't carry, you cannot sort of function
So there's lots of juicy stuff in that one. His Holiness led off with, I think, something very hopeful. He said, we all have the same potential. What do you think he means by that?
I believe that we all have the same potential to overcome the weaknesses that we have. And of course, everything is predicated upon our capacity or ability to comprehend, some more than others. But nevertheless, I think we have the potential to rise above our weaknesses according to that ability to comprehend. But we do the best we can, and we all have the potential to do well for ourselves. We all have the potential for showing such things as compassion, honesty, and so forth. As far as potential in business, politics, worldly status, that's all temporary anyhow. It doesn't really mean anything. But we do have the opportunity for our own personal growth and development. And I think that's what he means by that.
So everybody has the potential to change, to grow. Yeah. Yeah, Miranda.
So I was just thinking about, I was talking about this before the discussion today, is that, you know, regardless of who we are and what we've done, like we all have that nature of being like clear-minded, you know, and Geshe-la's talked about it as kind of like, or it's been talked about and referred to before as kind of like how our mind is like a blue sky without these illusions. And then you might have some illusions come in, like some clouds and some birds, and some people might have some pollutants and some bombs going off in the sky, right? And so if we take away all of those delusions and all of those things, like we all have the potential of Buddha nature within us, like anyone can become a Buddha. It was funny because when I first started going to Kadampa, I had like the misrealization that Buddha was like a god. First of all, that's what I thought. And there was only one Buddha. And then I realized that there are many, many Buddhas. And that was pretty fascinating to me. But that really helped me to open up my minds by hearing those teachings and being able to understand that if we, like, we're born into precious human rebirth. That's why they call it precious human rebirth, because we can listen to the teachings and interpret those teachings and then do something about that, you know, to take away those delusions of the mind. So everyone has that opportunity when that's given to them, and has that potential and that Buddha nature and that, I guess, I don't want to say good nature, but that inherent nature of clearness within them, regardless of if it's like someone that's a notorious murderer, whoever it is, you know, and people think I'm crazy when I say that, but I'm like, oh, Hitler even could have the potential in future lives to become a Buddha. And people really look at me sideways when I say that, but when you look at it from a different perspective, it makes complete sense. Thanks.
Yeah, so the innate Buddha nature, that's that clear space-like nature of mind. Yeah, that's wonderful.
So I think that actually leads into one of the other things His Holiness was talking about, which was self-confidence. You know, developing a healthy self-confidence, and how would that lead us to developing a calm mind? Any thoughts?
When Venerable Amy was here, she was talking about every morning waking up and focusing on one's good qualities. And she said, and not in an egomaniacal way, but focusing on the good things, because we have a tendency to have that nam talk, the negative self-talk, and these negative conceptions. But it's good to remind ourselves of the blessings that we have, and the good situation that we have, and the transcendent situation that that's available to us, and to keep that in mind. And in that way we have we have greater self-confidence, and we have a better awareness of who we really are.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want to comment out this real quick. I think that's such an excellent point, because one time I heard Venerable Thupten Chodron say, we have to be honest with ourselves. And she said, and when you hear that, don't you think I have to be negative about myself, right? We have to be honest with ourselves, which means there's good stuff in there for sure, right? So, yeah, really excellent point.
I think about the comment we've had before here about being in high school and going down the hall, and I think we all remember how we used to feel so uncertain about, are we doing good or aren't we? What's are other people thinking of us? And then I think for most people, as we grow older and we succeed in life pretty well, we gain confidence, and now we walk down the street and we're not at all concerned about what other people are thinking. We're really not focused on it at all. We're trying to get done whatever we're wanting to do today. And I guess it could even get to the point of arrogance. You know, I'm not even caring about what these other people are thinking, but really it's more just feeling calm about it, and knowing that most people don't even know you in the first place, so they're not thinking one thing or another about you. And the few that do, you hope they have a positive opinion, and maybe there's a few people that are feeling negative, but overall you're just not worried about it.
Yeah, yeah. It's an excellent point that just over time we tend to maybe develop more of that sort of properly balanced self-confidence, right?
I think as adults we do, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think perspective is a huge part of all of this. In the last week, I've had two friends. One's going through a really serious breakup, where she was the dumpy and not the dumper. And then I also have another friend who has a wonderful job that she hates, and she feels guilty for quitting because she feels like a failure. And then my friend that just is going through a breakup feels that she's going through this massive set of rejection. And I think the common theme here is that they're experiencing emotions because of an outside external force, but at the same time it's perspective based. So my friend that's going through a breakup, you know, this guy has his own stuff that he's dealing with, and it's not a reflection on her. And then the same thing, I have a friend that she needs to quit this job because she's super unhappy, but she makes more money than I've ever seen, but she feels guilty for that. But at the end of the day, it's that perspective to kind of know what's really important, like, you know, a brand new car or your happiness. So I think perspective is a huge part of all that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so perspective, is it the same? I want to make sure that I'm not putting words in your mouth or anything. That like perspective really is getting at kind of what we've been talking about how we view it from our side, right? That's perspective. And so that's what we can control, right, with our mind, and particularly if we have some of these techniques.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah, yeah. Excellent. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, I think we have a lot more control over our reality than we usually give ourselves credit for. You may not always have control over, you know, things that are happening, but you can always control how you're thinking about them. And as soon as people start to feel powerless and they don't have that self-confidence, then they're going to think that things are just happening to them, and they're not going to do anything to try to make it better. So I think it's important to act intentionally and to have the confidence to realize that you are constantly in control of your own reality.
Yeah, I think that's a very hopeful message, a really important one, you know, that there are always things we can do. Yeah, from our side. We maybe can't change what's out there, but we can change how we're seeing what's out there. Yeah, really good point. Yeah. Well, oh, yeah, go ahead.
So I think the thing you asked about developing self-confidence and like the foundation of correct self-confidence, right? Not too arrogant, not too self-loathing. I mean, from my understanding, and very limited understanding, of like when the Tibetan teachers came to the States and started to try to translate the teachings, they were shocked by how much Westerners hated themselves.
I've heard
literally.
that same story, yeah.
And that they had to really rethink the teachings and how to tell them to Westerners so that it wouldn't be weaponized by Westerners to hate themselves even more, because we're really good at it. Whereas I guess in Tibet, there's a lot of love for themselves, which is great, you know, but also hard. If you love yourself too much, you can't do the teachings, right? You can't see clearly. That's self-cherishing, in the same way that self-loathing is equally obscuring of reality. And so when I think about self-confidence from this tradition, I think the thing that I find the most beautiful is the way that the tradition asks you to experiment and says, try it. Does it work? Try again. Did it not work? Maybe it's you, maybe it's this practice. Try something else. Do whatever it takes to get free, right? Whatever it takes to achieve liberation. Here are some tools. If those don't work for you, try something else, right? And so when I think about self-confidence, I think it comes from a certain kind of experimental method where you can be confident that this is working because you've tried it. And you know for yourself, and you test it against it. Like the story that comes to mind is this, the idea that lies are detrimental to reality, right? That when you lie to someone, when you lie to yourself, you create breaks in reality, right? You create damage. And I remember a teacher of mine saying, never lie. Just stop. Like the moment you notice that you're lying, stop it, right? And so of course I'm like, okay, well sure, I don't think I lie. You know, I'll give that a shot, all that. And then noticing that I lie all the time. I lie to like casually to people all the time, right? And casually lie to myself all the time. Or not so casually, like intimately lie to myself, right? And to cut through that. And I was in a New York City subway station, and I remember I said something, and it was a lie to my companion. And it was like I could see that something had shattered between us because I didn't trust the person enough to tell the truth. And if I had, we actually would have had a stronger relationship. We would have been able to cut through, but we didn't because I chose to lie instead. It's those kinds of experiments, right, where you're noticing something because you're trying to practice it, that then you're like, oh yeah, I screwed up. And oh yeah, the teaching is right. And now I'll get to have another chance, right? That I think is the building of self-confidence.
And so I think a piece of that, if I'm hearing you right, is that, you know, to have self-confidence, we have to have some self-awareness, right? And so I know I spend a lot of time thinking about what's the difference between confidence and pride and trying to really tease those apart, you know? So yeah, it's a good question. I see that we're almost out of time, but there were just a couple of juicy bits that we didn't get a chance to get to, and I always want to have like solid, concrete tools that we can use. So just a couple of things that I heard His Holiness say in that regard was that he said, you know, that we often take things for granted and don't pay attention. And so that, you know, gratitude can be a piece of this. And I think we've kind of touched on that some, but I just want to sum that up. And then he also said, you know, that when we develop a sense of concern for the well-being of others, that the basis for anger is no longer there, you know. So that's another way to help us have a calm mind if we truly have that sincere concern. And a final concrete tip that he gave that was for even those with whom we feel irritation, if we see them as part of our community, if they're part of we, he was saying, you know, then and we know that our future depends on them, that can be a helpful tool for us. That fabric of interconnectedness, and we want everybody to be happy because, that's what everybody wants, right? Just like us, everyone wants happiness. So, any final anything before we wrap up? No? So, here's my summation that His Holiness has suggested these specific tools to help us achieve a calm mind. Remembering the positivity of any situation. Developing proper self-confidence. Remembering that others are similar to us in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. Challenging our own mental projections that exaggerate attractive and negative qualities. So, like we did at the beginning, maybe we could just rejoice that we spent this hour and a half really thinking about things that maybe we can carry into the week. And it is a grand experiment, I think. And so as much as you're interested this week, if it comes to mind, maybe try some of these out and see which ones might work for you in different situations. So, all right, you really want me to show that last video, don't you?
I do.
Okay.
It's only 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's only 30 seconds. All right, here we go. Hopefully this will work.
Mentally, we are sane. Emotionally, we are sane. Physically, we are sane. No differences. Very simply, human beings. You want happy life. I want happy life. We are truly member of one human family. We really need genuine sense of brotherhood, sisterhood.
There's one last little bit. Love that final bit. All right. So I think we can go ahead and do the prayers.
So in the Gold Prayer Book, turn to page 246. And we'll read the dedication from Master Shantideva's Bodhi Karyavatara. It's on the back of the prayer sheet in the white binder. 246. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain. Until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Om Taritu Re Soha. 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 Om Taritu Re Soha.
And now I'm jumping into my other role of Queen of Announcements. So Kim Lillig is here. She is yeah. Okay. Also, you can see that we have this beautiful altar of offerings here. We had a Tara practice here last night and set up all the offerings, and now they all need to come back down and things get put away. So if you have time to come and help with that, that would really be wonderful. And I don't know if Jill has a word for us on. Yeah, so I don't know where we're at with that. So, yeah, so the reason we're up here tonight, this morning, instead of Geshe-la is because Geshe Gelik is in Nepal, checking on and getting ready to send to us our beautiful Lama Atisha statue, which will be here behind the screen when it comes. And we have been sponsoring. We do have an opportunity. If you would like to help sponsor that statue and bringing it here and getting it set up. And it's really a beneficial thing to sponsor a holy object. For as long as that statue is in existence, that you keep gaining the merit of sponsoring it. Because when you think about it, the whole reason for having all of this array of thangkas and statues and things isn't because we like fancy things. It is, each of these things is there to remind us in some way of the spiritual path that we're on and to help us connect with that part of the path that moves us forward. Whichever one of those things touches you, moves you. And so when you sponsor the existence of a holy object, you are sponsoring the spiritual paths of other people and opening that up to them. So it's really beneficial, in terms of as long as that holy object remains, you're gaining the merit, for your own benefit, you're gaining the merit of helping others. And of course, then there's the benefit of helping others. So Joe can tell you all about the sponsorship opportunities that we have and how we're doing on that goal.
Take my back cape off here. Look, so if you go to the website, how many of you have seen that page on the website? Okay, fair amount. So if you go to the website and click on a banner that's on the homepage, then you can go look at it. And as Tibetan style, we always have ways that we can donate and sponsor. So we have many levels. It is all going towards the same goal, but there's many levels that you can be a part of. That starts at $250, but you can also group. We just want you to know that you can group together with other people. So today, while you're here, if you know you want to give, talk to some other people and say, do you want to give with me? You can also donate. It's one level of donation, any level you want, and then sponsorships are a little different, so you can combine them. And we are at, who's my drum roll today? There we go. $11,920. We didn't put a goal in there on purpose because we don't have our exact costs, but David, it would be okay if I just sort of said an assumption. Okay, he's our treasurer. We think it might be around $25,000. So we know that the artist fees were a certain part, and we don't know what it's going to cost for shipping and other things and mantras. So we don't have the final fee, but if we get around that much, that's going to help a lot. So since we have a lot of expenses happening right now with Light of the Path and with, we just had a big gala, and we really do need your help, so if you'll consider that would be great. And then it's okay, do we have enough time for Elise? It's outreach. Yeah. Lots.
While Elise walks up here, I'll tell you about another thing. Joe mentioned the Light of the Path, and we're getting closer to the beginning of that retreat, so there's going to be more and more volunteer opportunities. And if there's somebody out here who just really loves to do laundry, I have stacks and stacks of, they're just napkins, but we use them as covers for the students' tables during the retreat. And I need somebody who can volunteer to launder those and bring them back. So if you are interested in doing that, come and see me afterwards. And here's Elise. And then you can go home.
I'll make this quick. I'm Elise Strevel, Outreach, and we have opportunities for people who, even if you don't have a penny, you can practice compassion in action to know that what you do can affect the whole community. We have an eyeglass collection. If you have old prescription eyeglasses, we're collecting them in the lobby. We have the Love Note Project. Cards are available on the back wall pick them up and return them there. Just write a little note that we will then pass on to people who get Meals on Wheels, need that little touch of compassion and love from somebody out in the community. We have an opportunity for a food packing event at the end of August where we'll get together with other churches to fill little packets of nutritious food that will be used for international disasters. But we need for you to try and sign up for that by August 1st because they need to know how many people they can expect to make sure they can put this event on. And the other thing is there will be an interfaith prayer service also in August where members of many different faiths come together to put out the energy for building community. Details about all of these are on the web. Thank you very much. Anything that's a good quality eyeglass.